All right, here we go. Pairing up a Sal to Jared. Let's take Jared into his leg lift. Sal into his leg lift. Okay. All I look for in the leg lift, just are you shifting your momentum? Are you kind of hanging out over your backside? So I can see here both of you guys are inside your drive leg, so that's good. So you're both shifted inside your drive leg. Just means you have the potential to pick up good speed early and start building momentum. Let's take you down the mound. So you can see your lift leg is going really quick. Your lift leg knee breaks your front hip right out of your leg lift. So, at this point, the only issue, the thing is when your lift leg breaks your front knee, you could continue to reach out and extend out. But a lot of times when the lift leg breaks the front hip, it wants to open and it wants to put down. So I like to see a guy when his lift leg knee breaks his front hip, so right here, I like to see this force vector already being linear. So when you're coming out of your leg lifts, you really got to accelerate your hip speeds and really start to and try to get down to that linear position with that force vector before the lift leg wants to get out and put down. So watch this out. So you can see as he goes, he does that extended lift leg pattern. You can see him extending the lift leg. And then when his lift leg knee breaks his front hip. So this is when his lift leg knee right here broke his front hip. Your lift leg knee here broke your front hip. Look at the difference. Look at his force vector and look at yours. Okay. So what you're going to have to do is you're just going to have to keep reaching this leg out and keeping it closed so you can give this guy time to come down. So let's see if you do that. So you reach it out and you bring it down. But notice by the time it got down to where Sal's was, you opened a little bit and then you lost torsion. Okay. So if we look at a Sal here, as far as torsion, good indication of torsion is, does this leg look like it's going inward? Or does the leg look like it's going a little outward? I can see his leg is going a little bit outward. Your leg looks like it's going a little bit inward. So you're losing torsion. Plus also usually guys who open the front foot are rotating the backside. So their back force, their torsion is starting to lose. You're starting to lose torsion because it's starting to internally rotate. So a more efficient way to get there would be like a Sal did. When you're coming out of your leg lifts, don't focus first in the hips. You can see right out of your leg lift, your hips is still barely moving. So technically, excuse me, when your lift leg got down to here, when it got back down to the ground, you hadn't really gone anywhere. So what would be the difference if you had put your foot down right now and then started your delivery from there? I don't think it'd be much of a difference because the amount of momentum you generated from going like this to this really wasn't that much. So like I always tell guys, if you lift your leg up and then put it back down before you start going, kind of like Kershaw, what is the lift leg doing for you? Nothing. It's not doing anything for you. It's just going up and down. Okay? Not until, if you're going to lift your lift leg up and then fall and take your hips, and then your lift leg comes down with it, that's actually assisting your momentum. So that's where the lift leg actually was worth the lift. In your case, it wasn't. But if you see a Sal coming out of his lift, he really initiates the hips and starts falling. You see that move right there? You see the hips falling hard? Okay. If we go back to you coming out of your leg lift, look at that same movement for you. Do you see your hips falling hard? They're not moving hard at all. So the point is you're not initiating or you're not accelerating your momentum through your hips early enough and fast enough so when your lift leg gets out, you're loaded and ready to go. Because you're never going to get into this position here, this load position that I was talking about how we work to perfect and all the level 3 drills. You're never going to hit this load position if you're not very intent on accelerating out of your leg lift and leading forward and down hard with your hips into your leg. You're just kind of picking up putting down, and then trying to scoot out from that position. So less dynamic, not going to give you the potential to generate maximum ball speed. All right, so by the time you do reach out and get to a linear force vector, you've already started to open, which we said tends to happen when that lift leg knee breaks your front hip. And you didn't really load down, so we don't have any flexion. You're pretty much extended there. So when you don't have flexion, you don't have leg drive. You can't drive an extended leg, right? You can't jump high with your knees locked out. So look at the difference between these two load positions. Big difference. I'll get him in the same place as you. So like I said, torsion, flexion, linear. Loss of torsion, extension, linear. Big difference. He'll be able to peak forces out of it, you won't. So let's watch you go into front foot. So you just pretty much roll over because it's hard to peak forces when your leg is losing stability. So you just kind of continue to move with the opening of your front side, and you roll over your back side. Maybe a little bit of a push off the toe, but not a really peak of forces. So you hit front foot with not a lot of force through the drive leg. Let's see, you're as far as arm cocking I'm looking at, it's coming up right at front foot strike. That's great, except your hips aren't open. So let's wait and see when your hips open. You land here, looking for front leg stabilization. I'd say right there was front leg stabilization. Your hips opened in between here and here. So I could say there is when your hips open, and we can measure hip to shoulder separation. So you can see as far as where your arm is in relation to your hips that we see some separation because we see the hips open and we see this arm still back. But the issue is we have the trunk already in full rotation. Look at the glove side. That glove shoulder is, we can't even see it. So that means your chest is open. So I call this early trunk rotation. So early trunk rotation, and you still have your arm back to separated from your hips. That can create some arm speed or load on the arm, but it's also potentially dangerous because I believe, like Jason Mott, maybe Steven Strasberg, early trunk rotators put their arms in these red zones or these hyper abduction, and that puts the massive strain into the cuff, into the elbow. So able to get some kind of torque out of it, even though there wasn't a lot of force in your lower half behind your hips. But really, that's a negative to me as far as early trunk rotation. That can be something that over time could lead to arm issues. Let's watch a sow at front foot strike. So you can see from there he goes into a really aggressive extension. We see that full triple extension of that drive leg. Look how his hips start to rotate even before he lands. That's what the force production through the drive leg is going to do. That's going to force the hips through. You're going to hit front foot. He stabilizes right there, and you see the hips open and the shoulders are still closed. So if we stop at the point of stabilization right there, what do we see different between him and you? You're now both in the same position. We see he's got a lower center of gravity. He's got a little bit more drive leg abduction, similar stable front leg as you, but we can see his glove side, so that's not early trunk rotation. So technically, he hasn't even started shoulder rotation at this point, which you have. So you're going to be in less separation than he is. I mean, he's like in full hip to shoulder separation, front foot strike. Plus, it's healthier, no early trunk rotation. So let's see. We'll know how much torque and how much energy is in your body at this point as this transfers into the upper body. So let's see how far your trunk goes. So you're pretty much next frame, completely open, shoulders, or you're in where you should be in maximum external rotation, which we don't see it. So that's an indication that there really wasn't a lot of load on that arm, even though you're able to keep that arm back. It's probably because there wasn't enough force through the hips to really put that load up the kinetic chain. So we can see if this is your elbow position, that's your external rotation, and that's your forward trunk tilt, and that's your front leg extension. Good extended front leg. Let's take a sow into that position. Okay. Same front leg extension as you. Maybe a little bit more forward trunk tilt. But look at that external rotation. So good indication that his forces through his stride, hitting front foot, and moving up the kinetic chain through front leg, stabilizing his front leg, and keeping his shoulders closed in position to receive the load. When his shoulders rotated, he got that maximum external rotation. So he did a better job of building force and converting forces than you. So I just think if you get better like he was doing at loading and peaking forces, I think it will prevent your early trunk rotation. And with your ability, you cocking at the right time as far as late, that should allow you to receive that load, and you'd be in a maximum external rotation. So you'd be where he is. You'd be here, maybe more here, and you'd be full 180 straight back. And then that would be your max, your maximum speed. It'd be the last mechanical component we can work on, because from there on out, your arm's just going to ride on out. And you even go into front leg extension before pitch release, so does Sal. So look at that. You almost finish identical to him. That's where that ASMI's comparison, that we're more similar at the end but more different in the beginning. You can see you're almost identical to him at the end. But if we rewind it just to where you were before your arm went into acceleration, you can see not even close when it comes to the load in the arm as far as in external rotation. Okay. So you just need to do a better job of getting that load in the arm, and that's the forces through the lower half. That's loading better, peaking forces better, so we can get that up the connect chain. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?